A third meaning of social construction then refers to us human beings using empirical data to create theories. This meaning is used, for instance, in the sociology of science, when Bruno Latour, for instance, follows natural scientists in laboratory studies and observes how they create empirical data, how they create theories, and so on. In the sociology of science, then the social construction of theories refers in a way to a description of the context of discovery in which these theories have been created. A stronger version of the sociology of science then also thinks that the, let's say, descriptive construction of these theories warrants to say that these theories do not have any claim to objectivity and to truth, though they translate the social construction in the context of discovery also to something like the social construction of truth. This is a stronger statement and has been, so much in debates in the so-called science wars. Finally, a fourth meaning of social construction then refers to the Kantian idea, Kantian constructivism, in a way that our cognition of objects is not just like a mirroring image of what exists in reality, but that we always, as cognizing subjects, contribute to what we observe and to contribute to the kind of knowledge that we have. So this, in a way, follows the critique of a purely, let's say, representational notion of knowledge, right? Just mirroring reality as it is, and brings in a much more active role of the subjects that create knowledge. So these are just four different definitions of what social construction of X may mean. So hacking has actually many more meanings of this term. Sismondo lands on these four eventually. I just wanted to introduce these different meanings because they help to disentangle some of the often, let's say, stalemate debates about whether social construction is something that sociology should defend or should not defend, and social construction of what is always a legacy also of symbolic interactionism. Let me move on to the final element that draws on pragmatism and the Chicago School, that is speech act theory, developed by Austin, a British philosopher in the 1960s, and elaborated much further than by one of his American students, John Searle, already in 1969, and then he reiterates his speech act theory, in particular in the 1995 book, Construction of Social Reality. So a speech act, what is speech act theory about? A speech act is supposed to be more than just a statement, a descriptive statement about the reality, but points to the fact that speaking is a kind of acting. It's always, in many cases, also a kind of social action, and that when we speak words, they do not just represent something of reality, but they may also actively change reality using words, so they may be performative. So one of the original distinctions in speech act theory is the one between assertive and performative speech acts, where assertive speech acts are in a way a statement about the world, how it is. So the cat is on the mat, for instance, whereas performative speech act do something with the world. For instance, I declare you as being husband and wife, for instance. So a little bit of vocabulary to start with. So think about just an individual speaker speaking a certain statement, and the content of a statement, of a proposition, the propositional content, right, what the speaker says, is often referred to as locutionary content. Then this is different from the illocutionary force, and this refers to what a speaker implicitly does. And this is again different from the perlocutionary roles in which a speaker speaks. This is about how a speaker intends to influence someone. So take, for instance, this My Speech Act. I'm cold and the window is open, right? And you stand right next to the window. So the propositional content, right, or the locutionary content of the statement is relatively obvious. It's a descriptive statement about the state of affairs, right? Me being cold, the window being open. But in this particular context, there is also an illocutionary force. Yeah. So something that I'm implicitly doing, because implicitly I'm, if you want, directing a certain recommendation at least, perhaps a certain nudge towards you. So my idea is obviously to implicitly bring you to do something. So there's also a perlocutionary role in what I'm saying. I'm trying to, bring you to closing the window. Implicitly. So this example just shows you that it makes sense to distinguish between these three different aspects of a speech act, where, let's say, a more classical propositional logic would mostly focus just on the locutionary content and would ignore the much more social aspects that also go along with the speech act. So John Searle, in his latest Typology of Speech Act, comes up with these 5 different ones, and these are all different kinds of performative speech acts. They basically create an object, they constitute an object in the very process of speaking about it. And these are all different from the purely assertive speech acts or assertions, which are mainly about telling how the world is like or what is in the world. So first kind here of performative speech act are these, what John Searle calls the verdictives, where you acquit something or you diagnose something. For instance, you diagnose that the GDP has declined again, where you create a new social fact in the world, which is not the GDP decline, but a diagnosis about what the state of the GDP may be. Exertatives, different kind, excommunication or resigning, right? When the church excommunicates someone, then this creates, in a way, a new social fact. Someone loses membership. Third kind are commissives, like promises or betting. When you promise to someone, you create a new social fact, which is the promise to do something in the future. Behabitives, so these are all neologisms, obviously, such as apologizing or toasting, right, where you create the social fact of an apology or just a toast. Expositives, that is also just a theoretical kind of performative speech act where you postulate something or define something. I hereby define, right, X to be Y in mathematics, for instance. So these are all just different types of performative or declarative. They are also sometimes called speech acts. They all do not focus necessarily on being true or false, but it's more important for them to be, let's say, successful in the respective social situations. So when I declare someone a husband and wife, for instance, this is probably not a very successful speech act because I'm lacking, in a way, the institutional authority and power to do this. No one will invest any kind of collective intentionality or beliefs in this social fact that I'm attempting to create. So it needs, in a way, social conditions of success in order for these speech acts to be successful or not. This is often then being just in conformity with conventions, but it may also involve the right attitude of the speaker to utter it, right? If you try to realize a certain promise, so commissive speech act, you need to show sincerity. Otherwise, no one will believe in your promise, and the social fact of a promise will not be created. And this is different from assertive speech acts, where it's more about truth being the criterion of success. So something is the case in the world, something has a certain property, and this is different than from these performative speech acts, where it's rather about something being successful or not in the creation of a social fact. So yes, I've already been mentioning the social fact as a result of many of these declarative speech acts. So remember that institutional facts are opposed by John Searle to the brute facts. So institutional facts depend then on us in their existence, and they depend not only on a successful declarative speech act of the kind, I declare you husband and wife, for instance, but they also depend on the collective intentionality being invested then in basically this belief that these two people are now husband and wife. And in John Searle's account of these institutional facts, it is important that these declarative speech acts implicitly at least establish a certain social rule, where X count as Y in context C, so that these two persons in the context then of a certain a church setting, a certain religious order, count as husband and wife, or that in the context, in the economic context here, that this paper counts as money in certain payment contexts. So speech acts are also important then for, according to John Searle, the creation of social reality. One helpful way to distinguish different kinds of speech acts, but in particular the performative and the non-performative, the assertive speech acts, is the direction of fit. And so whenever you encounter a speech act, you may ask yourself, does the speech act refer to the world, or does it just reflect the world? Does it have a direction going from the word to the world, or from the world to the word? So in the case of, for instance, my observation, the cat is on the mat, so an assertive speech act, the direction of fit is the world to the word. So in order to tell whether my statement is true or false, I go to the world, and the world decides basically on whether the cat is there or not, and it determines then whether the words about the world are correct or not. And this is different than in performative speech acts, where it is about making the world in accordance to the speech act, right? I declare you husband and wife,